COVID relief plan on Saturday after an all-night party line vote, and now the House will vote on the bill tomorrow to approve changes made in the Senate. Plus, the list of accusers growing for New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, with top Democrats in Albany calling for the governor to resign. And then coming up, we have a terrific lineup to celebrate International Women's Day, headlined by 3 House members: Congresswoman Claudia Tenney of New York, Stephanie Bice from Oklahoma, and Ashley Hinson of Iowa.
How about that? Looking forward to that, by the way. There are more women in the U.S. Congress right now and the Senate than ever before in our history. So the 117th Congress is historic, if for anything, just for that reason. Pretty unbelievable. All right, I want to welcome in our panel on this Monday morning. We start with former Nevada State GOP Chairwoman Amy Tarkanian, back with us. Former Trump Senior Advisor Steve Cortez is here, and political analyst Mark Halperin. Good morning, panel. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for being with us. I want to start, Mark, with you. The COVID relief bill was passed, thin margins in the House, thin margins in the Senate. It was passed by the Senate. Now it goes back to the House, where they'll make more changes. Walk us through some of the mechanics, what we can expect over the next day or so before they vote again.
Well, the House, Rob, isn't going to make any changes, because if they do, it'd have to go back to the Senate. So we've seen already signs from House liberals who didn't like some of the changes that Joe Manchin forced in the Senate, but they're going to accept them. And so this bill will pass probably on Tuesday, and it means that Joe Biden will have fundamentally changed American social policy, economic policy, with a lot of spending that's got nothing to do with the pandemic. And it shows that Democrats can stay unified and Republicans can stay unified.
Quote unquote. I want to play you a soundbite. This is Kate Bedingfield, somebody who could be the next press secretary. I'm not saying anything negative about Jen Psaki, but she was out and about this weekend on a lot of the Sunday shows talking about COVID relief. Take a listen, Amy, then we'll get your reaction.
This is a bill that reflects President Biden's belief that the best way to get the economy back on track and get it growing is to invest in working people and middle-class people. So, you know, this is a reflection of President Biden's values. It is urgent aid that is going to help people all across the country, but it's also making a long-term investment in helping working people and middle-class people get back on their feet. So we're very hopeful. We are very hopeful that the House is going to move quickly to pass this legislation.
All right, Amy, they have, again, razor-thin margins in the House. I believe 4 votes to spare there, whereas Mark just said they will vote again tomorrow.
Right. And if Kate Bedingfield is going to replace Jen Psaki, you know, God bless the Biden administration, because I actually am tired of listening to Jen Psaki not answer questions. She's very snarky. I just said, she says, constantly, and is always saying she'll circle back. It seems like she doesn't even have conversations with President Biden before she goes out. A lot of times they have mixed messaging. Kate Bedingfield didn't say one there in that interview, and she seemed pretty direct. So that would be a nice change.
We've got our White House correspondent, Emerald Robinson, here. Emerald, I wasn't going to ask this question so soon in the week, but since Amy just kind of hinted at it, you know, we are now 47 days into Joe Biden's time in office. We've yet to see a solo press conference. Jen Psaki, I give her the benefit of the doubt. I think she's doing the best she can. But normally, with something of this magnitude, you'd see the president out there selling it himself to the American people. We have yet to hear from Joe Biden on this thing.
Yeah, I don't think she has a lot to work with. I think now it's pretty widely known she's not getting briefed in the way that a press secretary should. But to Amy's point, she's very snarky about it. People might be more empathetic if there was less snark. But to the meat of what you just asked about, Jen Psaki was asked about a press conference again the other day in the briefing room regarding the president. She suggested that they were looking to schedule something by the end of the month, but no definitive answer. And as we all know, that could come and go without actually coming to fruition. But of course, we're going to keep asking if we're going to hear from, be able to ask the president questions directly, and if that will in fact happen this month, to try to not let them just let it slide by.
Steve, good morning. Good to see you again. I want to get your thoughts on all this. The State of the Union address, by the way, has been pushed back. Typically, we hear from the president in the spring. That's been pushed back. We really haven't heard a lot from Joe Biden. And we're almost halfway through his first 100 days in office. Does this surprise you?
It does. I mean, I guess it shouldn't, given what happened in the campaign. But I figured that once he assumed office, he would know that his responsibilities were so significant and material that he has to be available to the American people. That has not been the case. We have gone from the most transparent president in American history, Donald Trump, somebody who I will admit at times was transparent to a fault. But nonetheless, somebody who made himself available constantly to the American people and to a highly antagonistic corporate press. We've gone from that president to somebody now who is being managed and largely hidden from the American people. And look, I think we can all talk around it, but the reality is there are significant doubts, and not just from those of us, who are Trump partisans. I think among regular Americans, there are significant doubts about whether or not Joe Biden is truly in charge of this administration. Is he really running White House operations? And I would point, by the way, to this legislation. This legislation should have been much easier to get done year earlier. It should have been done a few weeks into his term. It should not have taken almost 50 days of his term, given that they have control of both houses of Congress. I believe one of the reasons it took so long is that Joe Biden was unwilling or unable, or some combination of the two, to personally take command of that legislative process, to really sort of blitz both houses of Congress with personal appeals, with lots and lots of meetings, with intervention, with involvement in the process. To all accounts, that just did not happen. Joe Biden was largely absent from this process.
Mark, jump in.
Well, look, part of why it took so long is because they didn't have control of the Senate until the Georgia race is resolved. And then, of course, there was impeachment. I think the big problem for the Democrats is they're not going to be able to replicate this strategy on too much stuff going forward. And they've now divided the country, divided the Congress in such a partisan way. In terms of a press conference and the address to Congress, they're delaying everything until they get this thing passed because they don't want to topple everything. They've put off decisions on immigration, on education, on healthcare, on trade, because they don't want any controversy to possibly disrupt getting this pocketed. And then we'll see where they move on to.
It's just interesting. A year later.
Now, I mean, if they get that passed tomorrow, they won't have another excuse to say that it is the COVID package they're waiting on.
Right.
If they need it.
I think once their shirt's going to pass the House, I bet you they schedule both the press conference and the address to Congress.
Well, Mark, Mark, I'm going to hold you to that, because last week you said I'm waiting for one final shoe to fall when it comes to Andrew Cuomo, meaning maybe one more accuser. We got two more accusers over the weekend, and he said he's not going to let these accusations be a distraction. He used the term distraction to talk about, and now there are 5 accusers. I want to talk about that in just a minute, but it's amazing, Emerald, a year later. We had that first COVID relief bill back when the coronavirus first started. I looked up the vote this weekend because I was like, what did that pass by? In that $1.9 trillion bill that passed in March 2020 was a perfect 96-0 vote in the Senate. I mean, wow, what a difference.
Well, yeah.
And that was all about COVID, not the rest of this other stuff that's in this bill.
Well, and I think that this bill might have looked a little different had Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff not won the Senate. The Republicans tried to make amendments over the weekend and failed, or Friday they tried. Marco Rubio tried to put in an amendment that would require schools to at least open to 50% in order to get the funding in the bill, but that did not pass, something that the teachers union celebrated. But you know what? Everyone says elections have consequences, and I think Republicans are finding that out in a big way right now.
Let me play a soundbite from Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves, who we haven't heard a lot from. Mississippi will get rid of their mask mandate this week. Texas will do so on Wednesday. But I thought he made a really good point about why he is choosing to do this in the state of Mississippi right now. I'll play this soundbite, Amy, then we'll come to you.
All of these individuals who for a year have said, follow the science, follow the data, now want me, when things are going down, to completely ignore the data. The fact is, in America, we're seeing approximately 70,000 cases a day. Mississippi is 1% of the U.S. population, and therefore we should be seeing about 700 cases a day if we were on par with the U.S. The fact is, our 7-day average is under 450 cases.
Pretty compelling, Amy, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's wise of him to finally open up the state of Mississippi. I am waiting patiently, more than patient, for Nevada to do the same. But our governor has chosen to be a tyrant and still keep us somewhat on lockdown. We are now looking at possibly opening up casinos with still some very strict rules by Memorial Day. Entertainment will also have extremely strict rules if they decide to come back. I know most of Cirque du Soleil is finished. And then we also have conventions, which is also our bread and butter in the southern part of Nevada, that will return possibly in June. So we're still looking at some economic problems here in the state of Nevada. And our schools are just now opening up slowly. Still, some are virtual and hybrid. And we have seen devastation as far as mental health with our young kids.
Steve Cortez, want to get your thoughts on the issue. Do you think more states are going to slowly start opening up over the next couple of weeks and getting rid of that mask mandate? We should say, by the way, if you want to wear a mask, you can still wear a mask.
Of course. Right. And I think, by the way, a lot of progressives are suddenly going to discover, yes, they're free to wear masks, whether or not there is a mandate. Please do. We believe in individual choice in a country like America. But the reality is, when we look at the trajectory of the virus, in particular, I think it's very helpful when you graph it and you look at places with very harsh lockdown measures versus places that have been freedom jurisdictions like the state of Florida. We find that on the whole, the trajectory is largely the same. And in terms of the absolute numbers, actually a place like Florida, even though it has the oldest population in the United States by percentage, is right in the middle of the pack of U.S. states and doing far better than harsh lockdown jurisdictions like New Jersey and New York. So this is a trend that is accelerating, thankfully. Freedom is finally breaking out. The dam is breaking. I think a lot of Republican governors, frankly, have been very irresponsible in their tyrannical type restriction lockdowns. People like Governor Abbott of Texas, who now seems to thankfully be seeing the light. Also notable, it's not just red states, though. Even Connecticut, even deeply blue Connecticut, is now significantly easing its restrictions. So, yes, this is a trend that is going to accelerate into summer, and it is long past time.
Mark, jump in. I know you've been passionately behind Governor Greg Abbott of Texas and his choice to do this ever since last week. What are your thoughts now after a weekend of rest and relaxation?
Who are you asking, Rob?
Oh, Mark, I was directing that at you.
Well, and look, as Amy knows, the hottest show in Las Vegas now because of the COVID restrictions is called Penn. Not Penn and Teller, just Penn. Look, Governor Tate made it clear that he wants people to still wear masks. He wants people to still wear masks. He's just not mandating it. And I think the states like Texas and Mississippi that have taken off their mandates, Connecticut still has a mask mandate, but have put in some restrictions or lifted some of the restrictions. I think it'll just depend on what people do. And I hope Steve's confidence in the American people extends not just to people exercising choice, but doing something that's good for their community, which is, as the governor of Mississippi says, still wear masks.
Mark's really got the fastball today. I like that. Bright and early on a Monday morning. Panel, we got to leave it there. When we come back, I want to talk about Andrew Cuomo. Also, Donald Trump is back in the state of New York for the first time in a long time, so we'll get into that as well. Panel, we'll leave it there. I'll see you guys again at the top of the hour. Let's head over to Rachel right now. She is with us, and she's got to look at some of the other stories making headlines on this Monday. Hey, Rachel.
Hey, thanks, Rob. Well, there's outrage in Europe over COVID restrictions. Nearly 3,000 anti-vaccine protesters from across Romania gathered in the capital city yesterday as new coronavirus rules were announced, with cases surging in recent weeks. So bars, restaurants, theaters, gambling venues, and cafes are going to close their indoor spaces. The COVID rules were just relaxed for parts of Romania less than 6 weeks ago. Tragedy in Equatorial Guinea. Now, at least 20 people are dead and more than 600 wounded in a series of explosions at a military barracks. Now, the country's president saying negligent handling of dynamite caused that blast. The defense military later saying a fire at a weapons depot in the barracks caused that explosion. And the 2021 NBA One Night All-Star event officially in the books. 22 of the game's best players duked it out in Atlanta with Team LeBron defeating Team Durant 170-150 with a combined score of 320 points. Yeah. The MVP of the game did not face much defense, scoring 35 points on a perfect 16 of 16 shooting. Portland's Anthony Simmons became the first Trailblazer player to win the NBA dunk contest. And the Golden State Warriors star Steph Curry won his second three-point contest, scoring 28 points in the final round, nailing his last Moneyball shot to beat Utah Jazz guard Mike Conley's total of 27.
That's a spot right there.
It was quite a battle between people watching that last night. Yeah. And then Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, Oprah tell-all that we'll get into in just a minute.
I was going back and forth on the clicker.
I don't believe you.
Back and forth. You know, I couldn't get enough of the Oprah thing.
I don't believe you.
Who was she interviewing?
Time to get you caught up on some rapid reactions from last night. If you've opened up social media this morning, you probably noticed most people seem to be talking about Harry and Meghan sitting down with Oprah Winfrey for that exclusive interview to express their concerns over the treatment they say they received from the royal family. If you watched it, we know Rob didn't, but I did, and it surely didn't disappoint. Big-time Hollywood stars and athletes weighing in on social media. Tennis legend, we know, friend, of course, to Meghan Markle, Serena Williams, took to Twitter to defend the Duchess with a lengthy statement saying, in part, Meghan Markle, my selfless friend, lives her life and leads by example with empathy and compassion. She teaches me every day what it means to be truly noble. Her words illustrate that pain and cruelty that she experienced. Another tennis icon, Billie Jean King, describing her thoughts on Meghan's mental health when she said among the revelations from the Meghan and Harry interview is Meghan's struggle with mental health. Her honesty will hopefully lead to more acceptance and more help for those who need it. Now, that was a big theme on social media last night. A lot of people praising Meghan for being so vulnerable with that conversation. Andy Cohen had his eyes glued to the TV, like many of us, saying, "This is so sad and riveting, and I want to see every second of the rest of it." Conservative co-host of The View, Meghan McCain, did not hold back, saying monarchy has been archaic and toxic, and a toxic concept since 1776. English broadcaster Piers Morgan also not holding back, but in a different way, supporting the Queen, saying this interview is an absolutely disgraceful betrayal of the Queen and the royal family. I expect all this vile, destructive, self-serving nonsense from Meghan Markle, but for Harry to let her take down his family and the monarchy like this is shameful. Now, the Queen did address the nation yesterday, calling for unity. She did not mention the Duke and Duchess in her speech, but reading the tea leaves, as many say, seems like more than just a subtle hint. But we'll have to see. Of course, it's going to air overseas across the pond tonight, so I'm sure there'll be a much different reaction from British tabloids. Well, switching gears now, several states joining Texas and Mississippi in lifting mandatory mask mandates. The concern, spring break, the possibility of an uptick in coronavirus cases. So here to break it all down for us is the Chief of Staff at United Memorial Medical Center in Houston, Dr. Joseph Varone. Dr. Varone, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for the invite.
Now, you are very, very close to working a full year, full 365 days. How's your hospital doing, first and foremost, on the coronavirus front?
The hospital is doing a little better. I mean, we have had a number of very sick patients. However, the total number of cases has steadily been coming down over the last few weeks, with the exception of last week when we had a slight surge in cases, which I attribute to the freeze that we had in Houston about 3 weeks ago.
Right, and a lot of people congregating together to figure out what to do because of that, I'm sure. So let's talk about states like Texas, where you are, states like Mississippi and Florida. Do you think it's too early for them to lift this mask mandate?
It's a concern that I have. You know, the problem is that, for example, in the state of Texas, the governor is allowing people to use their own judgment. But as we know, I mean, not all of us have the same judgment. I agree with the sense that you probably shouldn't be telling people what to do. I mean, this is America, for God's sake. However, you can encourage people to do that and allow businesses to make a decision. There are a couple of businesses in Houston that are very, very bright. What they have decided to do is if you go to a supermarket, for example, and you don't have a mask, they will give you a mask at the entrance. And if you don't want to take the mask, then they're going to ask you to leave. Again, with that concept of, you know, no shoes, no shirt, no service, very simple. And that's not something that you have to make mandatory. I mean, it's almost an understood kind of thing. So it's a little bit of changing the culture. And the concern with the spring break situation is that, you know, we were young, at least me, I was young a long time ago. And we do really crazy things. And because at least our governor has said it's not mandatory, that to the young people means you can do whatever you want. So that, you know, in Houston, this coming Wednesday, there's going to be a party that is called a no mask party at one of the local giant bars. And that has been all over the news. I mean, it's like, that's a problem, you know, the understanding of what is the meaning of it is not mandatory. That is the primary problem.
And I think you make an excellent point in all of that you just said. Private businesses can still encourage and require masks to go into their businesses. We saw major companies like Starbucks, Target, CVS saying that they will require masks for people to come in them regardless of the states lifting the mask mandate. But like you said, for spring breakers, often younger college students, perhaps high schoolers, Things like the no mask party are the biggest concern. So you've said you've seen that drop in cases at your hospital. Are you expecting now, after spring break packs, once we get through March, are you expecting an uptick?
Absolutely. I've even been thinking about, creating some flyers and giving them outside the party so that people know where to go. I'm serious. I mean, it's, I do expect that this is going to happen because it's happened before. We lifted the mandate last April, and the next 3 months were probably the worst months of my COVID life. So I am very concerned that this could happen again, just because we don't understand.
Yeah, you make so many good points, Dr. Barone. I imagine it's frustrating. As you said, this is America. You can't tell people what to do. But sometimes when the decisions, such as a no mask party being published all over the internet for the younger kids, that can't be a good solution there. Dr. Joseph Barone, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for the invitation.
All right, coming up next, our business headlines. Hoping for a royal windfall, CBS reportedly paying a bundle to air that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle interview we were just talking about. We're going to tell you the price tag for that. You're watching Wake Up America. Stick with us. The market surging at the end of last week, heading into this Monday, all in the green. The Dow up 572 points. Well, talk ain't cheap, right? Oprah Winfrey's interview with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had CBS paying a license fee of between $7 and $9 million. The network was seeking about $325,000 for 30 seconds of commercial time. Boeing CEO David Calhoun's compensation was pushed to more than $21 million, despite declining a salary and performance bonus for most of last year. And it looks like the winter storms that raged through Texas weren't devastating for everyone. Goldman Sachs reportedly could make $200 million from the physical sale of power and natural gas and from financial hedges after spot prices
I hope they
jumped.
will do something about that, by the way. Many of these people that were hit with those bills, we had one person on that was hit with a $17,000 electric bill.
Just overnight.
Hopefully these companies will do something about that.
With their $200 million. All right, Rob, I think you'll like this one. Twitter finally giving users a second chance, introducing an undo function. Allows users to modify their tweets after they hit send. Maybe edit things.
All I want, can you edit?
Yeah.
Oh.
Modify, edit,
okay,
same.
that's good. Yeah, I'm into that. Because I'll misspell.
Exactly.
And then it'll get like 17 likes, and I'm like, no, it's already off and running.
It's on its way to being viral.
It's already doing its thing. I'm going to go vi.
All right, and how about this? A slam dunk for the auctions as a pristine Kobe Bryant rookie card sold for $1.795 million late Saturday, making it one of the most expensive basketball cards ever sold.
Yeah.
That one makes sense. You know, we've seen a lot of rookie cards going for crazy amounts lately. That one I think I understand a little bit more. Well, the Hershey's brand releasing a batch of Celebrate Hershey's bar. Catch it? Take a look at your screen.
Yes.
This is honoring all women and girls during International Women's History Month. The limited edition Celebrate She bars will be given away to the first 1,000 visitors to each Hershey's chocolate location on International Women's Day, which is, of course, today.
Today, March 8th. I love it. That's good.
You've got a nice little female panel coming up to talk about that as well.
We have three members of GOP members of Congress joining us in just a few minutes here on Wake Up America to talk about International Women's Day and a whole lot more. We're going to dive into some news and some politics as well with the ladies, but looking forward to that too, Rach.
Yeah, the next hour of Wake Up America starts right now.
Good morning, and thanks so much for waking up with us here on Wake Up America. It is Monday, March the 8th. I'm Rob Finnerty.
And I'm Rachel Rollar, and as we just mentioned, also International Women's Day. Here's some of those stories that we're following for you this Monday morning. The Senate passed President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan on Saturday after an all-night party line vote. And now the House will vote on the bill tomorrow to approve changes made in the Senate.
The president back in Manhattan for the first time in his post-presidency. What's he? Any idea what he's up to here in the Big Apple?
No, I have not been apprised of what he's up to. Of course, he's a Florida resident now. I think he's very happy about that, both from a financial standpoint in terms of taxes, but also more importantly, because it's really the example state for the nation of how to responsibly manage virus risks. I cannot tell you, though, what he is doing in New York today.
Emerald, I was kind of hoping that he was going to, we're only a couple blocks away from Trump Tower here, our Newsmax headquarters. I was kind of hoping that he would, find his way over here for a Monday edition of Wake Up America.
It's early. You never know, right?
I know he's awake. He is an early riser. So, Mr. President, we left the light on for you.
I wonder what he's doing here. I mean, he did make news over the weekend, sending some cease and desist letters to the RNC and NRCC, and some of those Republican-held entities, telling them not to use his image. So that was it. That was interesting over the weekend.
I wanted to keep it on New York for a minute. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer weighed in on Sunday about Andrew Cuomo and his developing situation, which has gone from bad to worse to even worse, and it did that over the weekend. Take a listen, Mark, and then we'll get some reaction.
I think that these are serious allegations, and if accurate and true, and I think we have to take action. But we also need to make sure that there is that thorough investigation. I know that the Attorney General is moving forward that, and that's something that I know that everyone who's weighed in acknowledges that's an important piece to then determining what accountability looks like.
All right, Mark, I come to you. Gretchen Whitmer, obviously a prominent Democratic governor in the state of Michigan, and it's just, you said on Friday on the show that if, he could be a former governor if more people come forward to accuse him. Over the weekend, 2 more women came forward. That number is now at 5.
And the leader of the Democrats in the state Senate and the Speaker of the House both suggested he look at resignation. He's being defiant, but they haven't responded to those calls for resignation. And I think what you're going to see this week, whether there are more accusers or not, more allegations or not, you're going to see a game of chicken between the governor, who's locked in and bunkered in, and the legislators, who I think, if he does not resign, will move towards impeachment, which will escalate the stakes quite a bit.
Amy, these are all, I would say, we have the situation at the wedding where Cuomo's got his paws on this woman's face. He tried to say, that's just how I greet people. I mean, this woman, she looks terrified, the picture. But these other 4 women that have now come forward, they worked very closely with the governor, many in his office. Anna List is a young assistant who came forward over the weekend. She was there for 3 years, from 2013 almost to 2016. And she had a quote over the weekend that she said, working for him for all that time, I felt like, quote, I felt just like a skirt. Your thoughts on that? And are you surprised that the governor hasn't stepped down?
No, I'm not surprised, because his ego is larger than life itself. And he enjoys the power. He enjoys being in the spotlight so much that he will have to literally be dragged out of the governor's mansion in New York. The fact that there is emails being exchanged where one of the members of staff is telling another member of staff that she needs to wear high heels when she's in Albany, and that the fact that some of these women felt that they were treated better depending on how attractive they were, right, and how they dressed that day, whether if they were lashed out on with his terrible, toxic anger that he is very well known for leashing out on people, whether if they're male or female. This guy has a pattern of being toxic. This guy has a pattern of being intimidating. And the fact that he's trying to play the "aw shucks, I'm a nice guy" role, it's nonsense.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, Steve. This is one of those situations. Now, obviously, a sex scandal is always going to get the headlines. But let's be honest, the big story with Andrew Cuomo is the nursing home scandal. 15,000 people are dead right now in the state of New York that might not be dead were it not for the mismanagement and then the cover-up of the governor in New York. He had the comfort ship, the Javits Center. There were other places to send these coronavirus positive patients. He chose to send them back into nursing homes. That got other people sick. And the worst part about the crime is usually the cover-up. And in this case, the crime is egregious, but the cover-up is also equally egregious. But now we've got 5 women that have credibly come forward. And he said this weekend, just almost, again, he's been so tone deaf because this guy's been protected his entire adult life. But he just said this is a distraction. He's not going to worry about the distraction.
Right. Well, look, it's obviously more than a distraction, but I will say this, in a sense, the governor's right that this is a media misdirection play. What I mean by that is these are serious allegations, absolutely, and they need to be fully investigated. It seems clear that this guy was a consistent creep to women, both in his private life as well as in his professional life. And when a superior, particularly somebody with the power of a United States governor, of the state of New York, acts this way toward women, he needs to be held responsible. But I say it's media misdirection because what I mean by that is this pales, however bad the situation is, it pales in significance compared to what you mentioned, were the outrageous mistakes made by the governor during the coronavirus, sending knowingly infected patients forcing them back into nursing homes where they unwittingly became seeding agents effectively of mass death among the elderly in New York. And then even worse than that, the cover-up, which is very likely criminal. So I believe eventually this is actually going to be the least of his problems. And again, I'm not diminishing what these women have to say, and I'm not at all doubting their veracity, but I'm saying in comparison to what he did regarding the virus and the cover-up, which is very likely criminal, he faces far larger issues than this one. I think the media wants us, corporate media wants us to only fixate on this scandal and ignore the far larger, the far more grave scandal.
Mark, jump in. Then Emerald, I got a question for you.
We're pretty close now to the point where he's more likely to be indicted or sued by Thanksgiving than still be governor.
Yeah, Thanksgiving's a long way off, though.
I'm leaving myself some runway.
Yeah, you left
here,
yourself a lot of
not
runway
sure.
on that one.
I'm not sure. I don't think he'll be in office till then. What I'm saying is I think that even if he does resign, the Attorney General's made it clear to people that she's going to continue to investigate. The Justice Department is going to continue to investigate on the nursing home front. So part of why I think he's going to be hard to get out of there is he feels like he's got more leverage and more power to ward off lawsuits or indictments the longer he's in office.
Right, but Mark, what if this AG report, he keeps using that as a shield, and I get that, fine, innocent until proven guilty, but what if this AG report comes back and it's not favorable? You know, then he doesn't have a lot of wiggle room. Does he have to step down then?
I don't think the legislature will wait that long because this is going to take almost certainly months to do this investigation, and he'll slow walk it as much as he can. So I think really the onus is now on the legislature. Now that the leaders there have said they think he should be gone, let's see what the rank and file does. Let's see when a whip count is done in the New York legislature, how many of the Democrats who dominate the legislature want him to go, and that would be the thing that would force his hand, just like with Richard Nixon. When the legislature says you can't function as president, it's hard to stay on as the chief executive. It's hard to stay on. And
meantime, you know, these five women, you know, who have been very brave in coming forward with their stories. Emerald, this happens every now and again. Now, basically, if you have a politician on the news show, I've got several politicians on Wake Up America this morning. No matter what, they can basically expect a question about Andrew Cuomo. I want to play this quickly. This is Joe Manchin, West Virginia senator, yesterday during the Sunday shows, and he was asked repeatedly about Andrew Cuomo. Take a listen.
These allegations are serious, but I believe you need to let this investigation go forward. They're looking into it, the Attorney General. They're looking into that. So let's see and wait till that investigation is completed before you have a rush to judgment. I've seen that happen and it doesn't work well. The rule of law is our bedrock of who we are as a country, and I want to make sure that everyone has their opportunity and fair chance, and let the investigation come forth, and then the results will come probably based on that, and that's what it should be.
Yeah, and Emerald, this isn't Clinton in the late 90s with a sitting president. You know, this is a governor in New York, and this is now the biggest story in America instead of H.R. 1, COVID relief, or any of the other big stories that are out there right now.
Yeah, almost every Democrat politician's been asked. The White House has been asked multiple times, and they give basically that same talking point. But it's interesting. They call for due process for Andrew Cuomo. Of course, as we've often talked about, they didn't do the same for specifically Justice Brett Kavanaugh. During his confirmation hearings, they used this the Blasey Ford story to their advantage and did not want due process to occur. What is ironic about today is that it is National Women's Day, and the White House is going to tout it in a big way. The president's establishing a gender policy council, but as a part of this as well, that hasn't gotten as widely reported, is that the president's also going to order a review of some of the rules put in place under the Betsy DeVos Department of Education under the former president, Donald Trump, that actually tried to allow for more due process for young men, specifically in colleges, accused of sexual assault or harassment or wrongdoing. And they're looking at rolling that back as they're calling for due process for the New York governor.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.